The Ultimate Fighter has been around for 18 years. Hundreds of athletes have gone through the show during this time, and many of them have scored impressive finishes. Some were sensational, some unexpected, and some plainly frightening. These moments caused a storm of emotions among the participants, viewers, and even the promotion's bosses. Today we remember 10 stunning knockouts that are scattered across all 30 seasons of Tough. Do it! It's rare that you see a KO that makes even professional prize fighters stop and think about their decision to do MMA for a living. That's exactly what happened in the 7th season. The final stage of the selection process involved a matchup between Dan Simler and Matt Riddle, both with one pro bout on their respective resumes.
Do this, hands up.
Riddle scored several takedowns in the early going and ended the first round strong, controlling from the top. The second stretch, however, ended surprisingly quickly.
Hands up, hands up, hands up.
Alright, stop. Let's get your bearings.
Riddle cracked the opponent's chin with the right hook, and Simler fell into another dimension. He was lying on the floor, moaning dreadfully for a few minutes. Team coaches, other contestants, and even Dana White were in complete consternation. One of the doctors said the jaw was f***ed, while Rampage didn't hold back on praise.
Matt got knockout of the century.
Hands up, hands up, hands up.
Simler was taken to the hospital, where it turned out that he suffered a severe concussion and a jaw broken in 3 places. As for Riddle, he lost in the quarterfinals, had 12 bouts in the UFC, and was kicked out of the promotion, failing a test for cannabis metabolites. The 10th season of Tough featured a roster of heavyweights. The main attraction was originally Kimbo Slice, who rose to prominence with his success in the streets. Nevertheless, he got eliminated already in the quarterfinal stage after getting crucified by Roy Nelson.
Fight's done.
Big Country eventually made it to the finals and garnered the most attention following Slice's fiasco. Dana White called him the most unathletic fighter in history, and Rampage put him on a steady diet of mockery.
It's like trying to get the blob off you.
The second finalist was the former football player Brendan Schaub. He had finished all his rivals, and in a multitude of ways. Schaub could strangle, knockout, or literally separate the soul from the body.
And here we go.
Brendan went forward from the get-go and nearly dropped Big Country by the fence.
Lands a couple nice shots. Oh!
Nelson clinched up to survive. They continued to drop bombs back and forth.
Nelson swing.
Good right hand by Big Country.
Roy's chin withstood all the hits, which cannot be said about Schaub's.
You should be a comedian.
Big Country is the Ultimate Fighter. Wow!
A few seconds later, the Tough winner climbed onto the cage and introduced the world to his signature celebration. Nelson stayed in the UFC for 7 years, had a total of 19 bouts, and is still fondly remembered not only for the sizable breadbasket, but also for his cannon overhand.
Oh! Big shot!
The effect of the knockout on Schaub's career was different.
Nacho cheese them.
Season 8 is rightfully considered one of the wildest in the show's history. Lunatic Junie Browning would often get wasted and go at it with light heavyweights. There was also a place for disgusting pranks when the rival team ate genetically modified fruits.
They had no idea there was piss in it. I guess.
Too bad.
And clearly, there were some promising fighters. Among them were accomplished wrestler Ryan Bader and the jiu-jitsu wizard Vinny Magalesh. They made it to the finals with relative ease and went head-to-head a few months later. As is often the case, two grapplers refused to hit the floor and decided the outcome with a stand-up showdown.
Down are very unlikely. Oh, big right hand! Getting some trouble! Oh, over! Ryan Bader is the ultimate fighter!
Vader fired a perfect overhand. The shell-shocked Brazilian was instinctively looking for a leg to grab, yet all he found was a couple of finishing blows. This knockout secured Vader the victory in Season 8 and a long stint in the UFC. Still, Ryan's most prestigious title came after leaving the organization.
Leaves with the belt for the latest Bellator news.
The 13th season featured 16 welterweights. One of them was Tony Ferguson, who enlisted on the show only on the third try. Being on Brock Lesnar's team, El Cucuy stood out from the rest. He wore sunglasses all the time and could easily show up in a tie when everyone around him was wearing a uniform. Ferguson's first scrap came on his 27th birthday. He arrived in full dress. In the opposite corner was Justin Edwards, who had never lost as a pro and finished every foe in the opening round. Tony had a rocky start. He would get overly excited and get caught here and there.
Attaboy. Wrestle! Watch your knees! Again. Control. Nice, Tony. Take him down!
At some point, the boogeyman got taken down. That's when the world witnessed Ferguson's creativity from the back.
Wrestle! Yes! Holy yes! Holy
El Cucuy forced the enemy to disengage with slashing elbows, and then upkicked Edwards into the Shadow Realm. This unique knockout marked the beginning of the road to winning the season, and becoming one of the best fighters of his generation.
Ultimate fighter!
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Look, Mom! So we threw you guys a pool party. All right?
The concept of the 22nd season was built around the confrontation between the lightweights from the US and Europe. The coaches were Uriah Faber and Conor McGregor. The Irishman made fun of the opponent's chin.
We're the ring girls.
That's right. That's a good point.
You should walk around with a car and shake that. Big similar.
Was rife with emotion.
Stay on your feet! Stay on your feet!
And insisted his friend at the time, Artyom, the Russian hammer Lobov, be on the show. Artyom's abnormally short reach didn't stop him from catching James Jenkins.
Stop! Yes!
Chris Grutzemacher tasted the hammer in the quarterfinals. Julian Erosa stood in the way next. Lobov countered the foe's kicks and reminded once again why they called him the Russian Hammer. The GOAT walks off into the sunset while Conor tears his suit pants apart celebrating. Clean work from Lobov. And profound joy from his friend.
My flags are covered in blood of my enemies.
Advancing, Artyom Lobov.
Get in there! Raise that flag! Raise that flag!
You probably don't remember Nick Osipchak, although this guy was once considered one of the brightest British prospects. In the quarterfinals, he was matched up against Mark Miller, who saw TUF as an opportunity to turn things around after a series of losses. The initiative was like a hot potato in the first round. They traded positions on the ground and exchanged violently against the fence. Having stood back up, the exhausted Osipchak gathered all his strength for a decisive smack. Tricking the opponent with a glance downwards, Osipchak sent Miller on a blind date with the canvas with a precise head kick. Brazil's Diego Brandow ended up on tough after moving to the US and joining the renowned Jackson Wink Academy. He was just as talented as he was unpredictable. In the last round of the draft, the Brazilian got Jesse Newell, a guy with distinct looks and cloudy prospects. The showdown didn't last long.
Now be patient. Hit him with one. Be patient. This one's up. This is the
As soon as Brandow spun his windmill, fragments of Newell's consciousness scattered across the octagon. A finishing sequence mid-flight is attached. Rumors say that the coach, Michael Bisping, felt quite queasy watching.
This is going to be a nasty season. Yeah.
The Brazilian berserker reached out to Dana White, and the boss answered the way he usually does.
I don't know what you said, but I hear you, brother.
Brandow would go on to bulldoze through the bracket to win the entire season, getting it done inside the first round each time.
championship, Diego Brandow, ladies and gentlemen.
What a great young man.
The appeal of the 17th season was the duel between coaches, the young champion John Jones and the experienced trash talker Chael Sonnen.
Good. Nice to see you, man. Thanks for joining.
Team Sonnen's first choice was the 6' 6" tall Brit, Luke Barnett. John's response was surprising to say the least. Picking an opponent for Luke, he pointed to the short and stocky Gilbert Smith. Smith was in no way prepared for such a challenge. He often got tired in training and cried in the tough house, missing his family. Barnett used the size discrepancy well, peppering punches from a distance and kneeing in the clinch. Smith managed to land a few takedowns, but they all resulted in short-term control and loss of endurance. The last attempt to wrestle became fatal. The lanky Brit unloaded a jumping switch knee. This confrontation between David and Goliath did not end according to the classic scenario, bringing Sonnen's team their first victory. The 16th season of The Ultimate Fighter didn't stand out for its charismatic mentors and big-name participants. And hardly anyone remembers the name of the winner, but the tournament gave us some of the brightest moments that went down in history. For example, Julian Lane and his demands to let him bang.
Let go, bro! Let me bang, man! I want to do that, man. Let me bang, bro. I do.
Or the knockout in the semi-finals when Neil Magni squared off against Mike Richie. Magni is an Army veteran with long limbs and a pragmatic style. Richie is a Canadian who didn't look like a fighter at all. When he walked into the cage for the elimination match, Dana White and Shane Carwin questioned his toughness.
Those are the ones that end up being tough.
Yeah, it's true.
And White even gave him the nickname, The Accountant. Despite his polished look, Mike advanced pretty far up the bracket.
All right, that's it.
In the opening stretch, Richie declared his ambitions with a bang. Neil closed the guard, took time to recover, and tried to stand back up, aided by the fence. Howbeit, Richie had already come up with an insidious plan.
That's it.
Mistaking Magni for a tax officer, the accountant Richie retaliated with a couple of elbows for high income tax rates.
That's it.
Congratulations.
Unfortunately, Mike lost to Colton Smith in the finale, had two unmemorable performances in the UFC, and went on to seek happiness in less prestigious promotions.
Instead of down like that.
We couldn't ignore one of the most brutal smacks outside the cage, one that Tom Lawler and David Kaplan authored together. Getting eliminated in his first outing, the frustrated Kaplan turned to the bottle and claimed that it was impossible to knock him out. Lawler happened to be next to him at the wrong time. An amusing dialogue between the two ensued. Kaplan literally begged the teammate to test the uncrackable jaw. Finally, Lawler caved in.
Dude, just do it.
Funnily enough, the awakened Kaplan flat out refused to admit that he was out.
I mean, did it knock me down? Yeah, but I wasn't knocked out.
Coincidence or not, but he hadn't won ever since, and subsequently retired.
That was the best we've seen of him.
Everyone knows Dana White loves flashy strikers. Uriah Hall became the boss's favorite already in the opening round, blowing away everyone with explosiveness, speed, and power. Having made his way to the final lineup, Hall ended up on Sonnen's team. Chael called Uriah the most gifted athlete on the show, talked to him privately, and was even going to pick the most favorable matchup. Hall didn't like that approach, and went up against the tough Adam Sella instead. Sella moved forward constantly, walking into clinch knees.
Keep scoring, Uriah. Keep scoring.
Then ended up on his back, and eventually fell victim to the most stunning and disturbing knockout in the show's history.
More, couple more.
A wheel kick from hell landed right on target. A passionate celebration was followed by dead silence. Adam regained consciousness only a few minutes later. Impressed beyond belief, Dana White walked around the cage swearing non-stop. Hall scored 2 more brilliant KOs thereafter, but didn't make it in the finale. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more tough-related content, smack the like button, subscribe to the channel, and vote for sport.